Alleluia, Alleluia. Everybody sing Alleluia, for the Lord has risen, it is true. Everybody sing Alleluia. 30 years he walked the land. Alleluia, Alleluia. To all in need he lent his hand. Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. Everybody sing.
Welcome to this playlist, which is devoted to a discussion and an analysis of the Second Vatican Council. Today we're discussing how there have been some attempts to change the dogmas of the Catholic Church since the Second Vatican Council. This video is the first of several in this playlist that will discuss the changes to the Mass. Please note that the videos in this series are numbered. It's suggested that you watch the videos in numerical order. To understand the changes in the Mass, we need to go way back to the Council of Trent, which was held between 1545 and 1563 in Trento, Italy. It was an ecumenical council convened for the purpose of better defining the Church's beliefs in the wake of the so-called Protestant Reformation. All the canons and the dogmas of the council were approved by the Pope. Today we're going to specifically discuss the 13th canon of the 7th session of the Council of Trent. The canon deals with all the sacraments of the Church, but today we're just concentrating on how the canon affects the sacrifice of the Mass. It seems interesting that the documents promulgated by the Council of Trent don't appear anywhere on the Vatican's website. You can draw your own conclusions about that. The documents do appear on EWTN's website. Here's how EWTN translates the original Latin into English. If anyone says that the received and approved rites of the Catholic Church, accustomed to be used in the administration of the sacraments, may be despised or omitted by the ministers without sin at their pleasure, or may be changed by any pastor of the churches to other new ones, let him be anathema. Well, I have to say up front that I'm not an expert in Latin, but it seems that the translation by EWTN is an honest one. However, even though it's honest, it's not really a good translation either, and let me explain why. Here's the 13th canon in the original Latin. Please note that I highlighted the word Quemcumque. Quemcumque translates to whomever. Here's a screenshot of what you'll see if you type Quemcumque to Google Translate. Unfortunately, EWTN translates Quemcumque not as whomever, but as any. Now this is a big deal. With the improper translation, the English really doesn't make much sense. However, when Quemcumque is translated properly to whomever, the intended meaning of the 13th canon comes into better focus.
And the Latin word for whomsoever is absolutely without a second meaning. It is very clear. The Latin word quiscumque. You can look that up in the dictionary if you don't trust me. The Latin word quiscumque, in classical Latin as in medieval Latin, has only one translation. And the translation is whosoever, brackets, no exception granted. Whosoever. Quiscumque is absolutely exclusive. Now, whosoever of the pastors of the churches includes the Pope. The Pope is the Bishop of Rome, the Archbishop of Latium, the Primate of Italy, the Patriarch of the West. That's a lot of pastors in one person. So anyone, whosoever of the pastors of the churches includes the Pope. The Council of Trent fathers knew Latin. They were not like the fathers at Vatican II who didn't know a thing about Latin. At the Council of Trent, the only language used was Latin. They didn't speak anything but Latin. Of course, they spoke Italian. They spoke Italian when they were running over for a coffee. But in the Cathedral of Trent, Latin was spoken. And everybody back then knew his Latin. And when they formulated that canon, believe me, they were back then, they took the truth seriously. They were fighting over every single word. And if the word quiscumque was chosen, that meant the Pope too. To choose the word quiscumque was like saying right in the Pope's face, that means you too.
Though the Council of Trent dogmatically prohibited anyone to ever change the liturgy, in 1969 Pope Paul VI suppressed the Latin Mass, and he attempted to replace it with a new one, the Mass of Pope Paul VI, which is also called the New Mass or the Novus Ordo, which means the new order.
But we have the novus ordo. What's it called? It's called in Latin
The new order.
The new order. This is the new order. It is different from the Tridentine Mass. That
It's not a development. It's a
It's not a
brand
de-
new thing
yeah.
written by a committee who are, for the most part, liberals and modernists.
and with the help of Protestants.
With the help of Protestants, yes.
It will help Protestant ministers, 7 so-called Protestant ministers. But my point being that the Pope doesn't have the power.
As we stated in prior installments, if a pope or a council attempts to change dogma, the change is illicit.
That the popes do not have the power to change the Mass from the old Mass to the new Mass.
When a council rules on faith in concert with a pope, it becomes dogma. The establishment of the new Mass was an attempt to change dogma. Objection! Isn't the change in liturgy just the new discipline? If the change in liturgy is to be considered just the discipline, it would need to be proven that the change does not deal with faith and morals. The Catechism of the Catholic Church is a statement of belief of the Church that was released subsequent to the Second Vatican Council. And the Catechism is absolute proof that the liturgy is central to faith and morals. Now here's a screenshot of the Catechism from the Vatican's own website. It says, "The Church's faith precedes the faith of the believer who is invited to adhere to it. When the Church celebrates the sacraments, she confesses the faith received from the apostles, whence the ancient saying, lex orandi, lex credendi, or the law of prayer is the law of faith. The Church believes as she prays. The liturgy is a constitutive element of the holy and living tradition." And then the Catechism continues. "Likewise, since the sacraments express and develop the communion of faith, the lex orandi is one of the essential criteria of the dialogue that seeks to restore a unity of Christians."
So this is dogma. It's not. It's not.
It's
canon.
not just a disciplinary
It's,
thing.
not, it's dogma.
So please remember that the 13th canon deals with all the sacraments, not just the liturgy. Unfortunately, Pope Paul revised all 7 sacraments and not just the Mass.
The new Mass is forbidden by law, by divine law. That's what is the point of this. Now, maybe I'm going too far, and maybe someone could correct me on that. But it's forbidden to change these Mass into a new and different Mass. So it's there. It is right there. It says, or that they can be changed into other new rites by any pastor in the Church. Any pastor, and the Latin says quemcumque, whomsoever, meaning even the Pope.
It's an article of the faith that the dogmas of the Church are true. It's an article of faith that the dogmas of the Church cannot be changed. So, unless we are heading straight into the end times, we can believe with absolute certainty that a future Pope will abrogate the Novus Ordo Mass, leaving the Tridentine or the Latin Mass as the sole liturgy of the Roman Rite. Please note that this video that you've been watching is not a standalone video. We'll be doing about 8 or so more videos over the next few months on this subject. Well, in conclusion, this Sunday you're going to have a choice between maybe driving 1 hour or so to a Latin Mass, or maybe just driving 5 minutes to a Novus Ordo Mass. I humbly ask that you consider choosing the Latin Mass. In regard to the Novus Ordo Mass, please don't go.
Baby, please don't go. Oh, baby, please don't go. Baby, please don't go down to New Orleans. You know I love you so. Oh, baby, please don't go. Oh, baby, please don't go. Oh, baby, please don't go down to New Orleans.